Today on Third Rate Content, ancient burial mounds, Norman churches and more yew trees than I've ever seen in a sacred sanctuary. If you want to see all this, keep watching Third Rate Content. So welcome back to Third Rate Content. Today we are in the very small village of Little Ness in northwest Shropshire, and we're going to be having a good look at the church of St Martin, the very old Norman church, 12th century, 1100s. So buckle up and I'll see you out here. And there is actually another even older thing we're going to be looking at and speculating about while we're here. So like I said, I'll see you out here. St Martin's Church, Little Ness in North Shropshire, is a 12th century Norman church dedicated to St Martin, Bishop of Tours in France. Like many buildings in this area, think right in 11 Towns, our recent video there, the church is built of local sandstone and was a chapel of ease to the parish of Baschurch. Yeah, you got your bank of yew trees and the perimeter of the churchyard. Yeah, if you look, that is very old. Is it 1893 or 1793? Either way, it's old. It remained a chapel of ease until 1911, when it became an independent parish. This was down to the efforts of Alfred E.W. Darby of Adcote. The hamlet, and this is according to the church's actual website, the hamlet of Little Ness is a close community, and the church echoes that. Yeah, yew trees, you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 that I can see. Might be more around the back. So St Martin Church is actually a Norman church built in the 1100s. You know, sort of reign of King Stephen and the anarchy. And a lot of strife in the country of England at that time. But it is believed that directly previously to the church, there was a small wooden motte and bailey castle. I imagine it was built straight after the Conquest, when the Normans were establishing control, especially over this tumultuous border region with Wales. And the inhabitants of this wooden castle could have been facing the very real historical figure, but also very mythical figure, Wild Edric. When the castle was built at nearby Ryton 11 Towns in stone, the castle here at Little Ness became redundant, and it was instructed that a church that we're looking at now was built on the bailey platform of the castle. But many Norman fortresses were built over previous hill forts or sacred areas that were already built on raised ground. The watercolour here is by the Reverend Edward Williams, who made records of most parish churches in Shropshire from the years 1786 to 1791. As you can see, there is 2 yew trees here on the mound at that time. So obviously the other ones are younger and have been added later, or have duplicated from the older yew trees. Just making our way around the east side of the church. You can really see the higgledy-piggledy sandstone as it's been patched up over the years. But as old as St Martin's is, it is probably not the oldest man-made structure we're going to see today. I do love that eastern window, even though it's small. And the workmanship, again in sandstone, is excellent. Yeah, there's even more. Like I said, I counted up to here. So you've got this really massive yew tree. I would say this is one of the trees from Reverend Williams's watercolour. Must be mega old, 1,000 years or more. And then you've got all the yew trees that continue in the perimeter, along the perimeter of this raised enclosure that the Norman church is built on. And when we talk about old churches being built on sacred grounds from previous religions or previous cultures, pre-Christian, this one of Little Ness is a really fine example, because as you can see, this would have been used, this site, I would have said, for thousands of years. The yew trees are a bit of a giveaway of it, and the fact that it's on a hill, and the fact that it's a really old church, so goodness knows when the foundations go back to, because there was probably maybe another Christian church here preceding the Norman one, and then before that a pagan religious site. They didn't usually go in for buildings, it was more of a sacred grove, yew tree grove such like, which this is the most yew trees I've seen on the churchyard. I mean, there's got to be 30. I counted about 17 round there, and then at least another 17 round here, so over 30. That's a lot of yew trees. This site could have been in use before the Romans ever came to Britain, but with the Romans leaving, the country of Britain would have returned somewhat to its pagan ways and the old gods of the island of Britannia. And it would be centuries before Rome exerted its power over the British Isles once again, but return it would in the fullness of time. But I don't believe the old ways were ever eradicated completely. The British movie The Borderlands, made in the last 10 years, has a very dramatic take on a Christian church in England built over a pre-Christian site. It's worth watching. It is a horror film though, so do be warned. That is one super old light sandstone cross. I can't see any date on it though. It's way too old for that. Probably Norman or something. Yeah, these crosses, the Celtic crosses, really have exquisite workmanship. Our collective lineage nurtures individual power. And that Celtic quote was attributed to Angius. Intricate and sublime, I'd call that stone workmanship. The memorial to the left of these Celtic crosses is the Alfred Derby who got St Martin's converted to independent parish status. Going for these really elaborate Celtic cross memorials. Christie. The Derbys were the left, and then look at these ancient symbols on this Celtic cross, and we've talked about it before. Celtic crosses predate or very much blend paganism and Christianity. Yeah, you got that Norman sandstone arch in the porch. And we've got these mosaic tiles, again like the ones we saw at Strata, Florida, and we've seen them at other places. These could well be original again, looking at the ones we've seen recently, comparing them to those. Slight downer. The church is shut today. Nothing we can do about that. Very sorry. Yeah, this cross looks like it's been here a long time. Probably as long as the church. Or possibly not. If you do know, please comment. Really not much left of this memorial. It's actually easier to read on the screen, but I can't read it. It's old. Yeah, just over my shoulder, over my left shoulder there, is really one of the main event of what we came to see today. The mound next to the church ground. Let's go see it. Tumulus, burial mound or barrow, however you want to look at it or whatever you want to call it. This is going to take today's episode deep into history, mystery, British folklore, mythology. And with King Arthur supposedly buried just a few fields away near Baschurch at the Burth, this burial mound of the last king of Paris and Penguern Cyndylan would be from virtually the same time period as the nearby burial place of King Arthur, King of the Britons. This landscape of Shropshire and the surrounding area is haunted by these myths and mythical people, and yet there is evidence, as we can see, of something happening here at that time. And of course, for many years before, layers upon layers of history. And there's this very interesting story from Shropshire Folklore by Roy Palmer, fine book, about a man who dug into the burial mound in search of treasure. And he found a huge chest. And when he eventually did lift the lid with great effort, and as the lid slowly creaked open on the ancient box, what did he find? A large black cat. It hissed at him and sat on top of the chest. Anyway, undeterred, the unnamed man went away and fetched horses and a thick chain which he fixed to the chest. As soon as the horses began to pull, the chain broke into 100 pieces and the cat disappeared. What happened to the chest and its contents does not seem to have been recorded, and it also just shows you that some treasure doesn't want to be found, and it might not even be what you're expecting it to be. It could be something completely different than actual material treasure. It could be knowledge, information, anything. And you could say it depends on the seeker, the treasure seeker's sort of level of consciousness and what they find. And I don't know if this is the origin for that story, or it's just a coincidence, or just something that happened additionally. But I got this information from the Ancient Yew Tree blog, and it states that on the 14th of February 1947, the Reverend Parrott, the vicar of Little Ness, reported damage to the tumulus, the burial mound near his church, caused by Mr. Davis, a local farmer, when he cut down a yew tree. The reason Reverend Parrott was concerned about this minor mound is interesting, for he believed that it was not a motte, but in fact it was here that Cynddylan was buried after a bloody battle against the Saxons at nearby Baschurch. And of course, the supposed burial place of what could be King Arthur, or what could be another warrior from this era who also fell in battle at that nearby burial mound, is fascinating and indefinitely warrants further investigation by third-rate content. So Cynddylan lived in tumultuous time in the centuries immediately after the Romans had left the British Isles. The Saxons invaded on the eastern seaboard, and the British, the undefended British, were pushed back further into the western sort of section of the island. Not surprisingly, there isn't a huge amount of historical record on Cynddylan, but it is thought that in 642 he joined Penda of Mercia in defeating King Oswald of Northumbria at the Battle of Maserfield, which may or may not have taken place nearby Oswestry. As there isn't a huge amount of historical documentation from these early medieval, very dark ages. You probably as well watching Excalibur. If you want a dramatic take on events in this time period, yeah, we are going to go, and we're trespassing, we'll probably get in trouble. I've got to go to the top of this mound. Burial mound of Cynddylan, King of Penguern. And there is no way you would have a burial mound this size, dug for you, with a tree planted on top, unless you were someone very, very important. Which Cynddylan obviously was, because we're standing here talking about him now. But it wasn't just the Saxons invading from the east. You had people invaded from Ireland, from all over Europe. Post-Romano Britain everybody was trying to invade. So it was like a melting pot of cultures and religions, pagan, Christian, everything was going on all at once while Britain found its feet. And it wasn't till a little bit later on that when the Roman Catholic Church started to find its way again, and started sending missionaries over to Britain to try and convert all the pagans and kind of stamp a corporate identity on Christianity, which was the Roman Catholic Church. Because the Christians who had remained on the island had basically lost contact with Rome. But all these things most certainly did not happen overnight. Yeah, so today, just by visiting the Church of St. Martin, we visited the Roman period of Britain, the post-Roman period of Britain, the Dark Ages, the post-Romano period, and the Norman period of British history, and the Saxon battles and wars. So if this doesn't inspire you to get out there and visit these places, because they're all around the place, all around you, if you're able, nothing will. But if not, just keep watching third-rate content, because hopefully we'll be doing this for a long time. But thanks for watching, and history abounds, and it goes back so much further than what we've even showed you today. So keep watching third-rate content, and we hope to cover it soon, all of it. Yeah, so thank you for watching to the end of today's presentation on third-rate content. Hope you enjoyed, but if you're still here now, you probably did enjoy somewhat. Please don't forget to leave a like, subscribe. Very much helps the channel at the moment. And if you'd like to, please leave a comment. I do love a good comment, and I read them all. But anyway, third-rate content, signing out. See you soon. Bye-bye.